so I apologize in advance. Okay, I'd like to call this pre-K through 5 and Eagle Academy building committee, pre-referendum committee to order at 6 o'clock on Wednesday, January 28th. Roll call, please.
Randy Daigle, Tina LeBlanc,
Here.
Christine DeBoni,
Here.
Janet Cushman,
Here.
Dean Gauss,
Here.
Kelsey McGuire Bruce, Danielle Gerard,
Here.
Gina Sakala, Marie Prisner,
Here.
Bob Crisati,
Here.
Lauren Andrews,
Here.
John Digg,
Here.
Kate Flanagan, Steve Macchio, Jacqueline Valley,
Here.
Charlotte Wiley. And then we have Jeff.
Here.
And you said Antonio's going to be late.
She is on her way.
Justin,
Not here.
Chris Cycli, and John Santinella.
Yeah, I'm just here for Gina to take
Yeah.
notes.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Item number 2, approval of minutes. We do not need approval tonight. Item 3, presentation by the architect, an update on design team activities, and the review of the community conversation number 3, draft and discuss. So I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. Jeff Wazinski from Tectonic Architects. So what you should have in front of you is the slide deck that we're going to go over tonight. This represents some of the updates of the activities that we've basically scheduled and attended over the last 3 weeks. And then you have, underneath that, you should have a pile that looks like this, that starts with this. This is the community conversation Q&A draft. The next is a slide that I want to go over in more detail, specifically responding to questions about the grant application and when things lock in. So I want to go over that. That was a topic that we wanted to make sure was crystal clear to this group, but also to the community. And then a draft template of the community conversation. So that is scheduled for next Wednesday at the high school. So
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock. So whatever we can do to spread that word. I know it's on the school's website, but if it's on the town website too, that would be very helpful, and on the town calendar. So with that, does anybody have any questions before I jump into the update slide deck? Okay, great. All right, so as I mentioned, in somewhat this order that I put together as far as the agenda, I'm going to put a pin in the community conversation and walk through I want to get through some of the activities that we went through over the last month. Talk a little bit about the program refinements. Spent a lot of time developing, which I didn't print out copies. I spent a lot of time developing with our team project budgets, detailed project budgets for each of the projects with a cash flow projection and with the cost to Enfield and the cost in the estimated state reimbursement based on everything that you've seen. Is just a lot more detail, and it goes from basically now till 2032. So the intent, we tried to get a meeting scheduled, just obviously with the weather. We didn't get a meeting together with town finance, but we're trying to get that scheduled either later this week or early next. So I'm hoping that document will be helpful to them to see exactly when things will hit from a project perspective, so we can kind of manage the finances accordingly. So that was a lot of work. I have a slide that shows that, but I'll explain it. I didn't print out all that data, but happy to share it after the meeting. So where we are in our process for those, everybody at this table really knows where we are, but for those that may be listening at home or afterwards, we're kind of turning the corner here and headed home as far as the final work related to this options planning. We have 3, at least right now, and we can certainly schedule more, but right now we have 3 more pre-ref meetings, always bringing us into March. And then March is actually a little bit before that, February-ish. We need to start getting real with the grant applications and all the activities related to that. So that's where we are. Let me go to, sorry. skipped over. All right, I'm gonna skip over the slides. I kept the slide that shows the condition or the age and size of the buildings. You've seen this slide before, so we're gonna skip over that. This slide here is an important one. And what we did is prepared kind of a Q&A sheet, double-sided, that we'd like to hand out at community conversation number 3. So the front of it would say questions from CC number 1, and then on the back it would say questions from CC number 2. We took some liberties and added a few more questions that I think were asked either during or in between those meetings, but it covers everything from, you know, questions about the attendance zones to enrollment projections, where did you get the student enrollment numbers, funding commitment, reimbursement rates, the grant process, did you look at just fixing what you had? So all of those are in this, and if I could respectfully ask you guys to just take a look over the next couple days, and if there are any comments, if you think there's anything missing. I tried to take some of the comments that we talked about at the last meeting, because I know things like, you know, what are the sureties, what does that grant process look like, what are the reimbursement rates, those kinds of things. I tried to keep them simple and clear in this document. So if you think, I have thick skin, so if you have any comments at all, what I want to make sure is that ideally, we should have pretty much everything covered on the front and back of this. I mean, there'll be more detailed questions, but all the major ones, we should be able to narrate here on the sheet. So happy to stop here and take any questions related to this off the top. I don't know if it's prudent to walk through each one right now, but.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you see anything that stands out to you tonight, let us know, but how about we put a deadline that you would let Randy know by like 3 o'clock on Friday if there's something you don't want on here or something you're questioning or something additional, and then that would give Tektron time to either respond to Randy, to respond to you, or respond to the group before Wednesday. So does that give you guys enough time to look this over? Because I definitely want to hear, if we're going to be handling this out at the community conversation, I definitely want to hear from the liaisons for the town council and the board, especially, and then the committee members that are sitting here. So, because this is I'm hoping this is the community conversation that we can really get everybody pulled in. And I think that a lot of questions raised last meeting, and I see some of them here that have been raised in the past are really what we're looking for.
Yeah.
So yeah, so 3 o'clock on Friday, if you have any questions, yeah?
I would just say, I'd also want to make sure that Steve and the school side is happy with these answers, because when it says Tekton Q&A, it's got their logo at the top, and they're going, anybody that gets this is going to think this is
Right.
coming from the schools,
Oh, yeah.
not from Tekton, whether you say that or not. So I just want to make sure that Steve's
Mr.
comfortable
Macchio,
with
does
these
3
answers.
o'clock work for you by Friday? Perfect.
I'll circulate the PDF digitally too, so you have it, so if you want to make markups on that, we'll do that tonight.
Okay, does anybody prefer to have this electronically so you can get that to you electronically? Okay, we'll get that to them electronically.
Okay.
You can send it to Randy or me, and then we can, or and Ellen and Christina, we can send it out to them.
And if you don't mind, mark it as a draft in case it gets out, like, just so everybody knows this is a working document till next Wednesday night.
Absolutely. Yep.
Thank you.
All right, good comments. Thank you.
Well, thank you for doing that.
Okay, so,
Just the numbers.
so the next slide here, not really much has changed on this schedule, if at all. I just clarified some of the dates on the bottom half of the slide. So we talked about this at length at the last meeting. This slide that's up on the screen here, and it's in your handout on the bottom. The bottom half of this slide talks about all the things that we need to do for the grant application. So that's a little bit of us, a little bit of the schools, some of the community, and some of the various different boards. So I think Chris and I will work after we have our meeting with finance we can then start getting a more detailed to-do list of like when things need to be published, when things need to be inserted. It's just because I know there's a lot of dates and schedules that we need to hit. So we have time. There's not real concerns here. I'm going to reiterate what I said. If we have a meeting, we present, we approve. We need that meeting, and then we need the meeting after approving the notes of the approval. So it goes for town council, it goes for Board of Ed, with the ed specs, it goes for all of that. So, so there's a fair amount of work to be done here, but I think we've done it before with the schedule. Yep.
If Randy's still sick, he tends to go to those meetings. Do you need somebody from the board at the finance meeting?
I don't know,
If
depends
he's
on
still
when it is.
sick.
I don't know yet, yeah, we'll see. I think we're gonna, yeah.
If you just send me an email, let me know if you need, I can
Yeah,
probably.
I appreciate that, yeah. We may do it virtual, I don't know.
Right,
Keep his friends with.
you, right,
But thank you, yeah. So we'll speak to the appropriate parties that are responsible for some of these authorizations and basically votes. But the biggest ones are ed spec vote from the Board of Ed, and then some of the authorizations from town council, which you've seen before. You have to do them for roof projects, you have to do them for large projects. They're not necessarily committing you to anything other than they're just grant applications to vote on. So I'm hoping that most of them are pretty straightforward. And we have data from previous votes to help with the language. The other piece, met earlier just with the special legislation. We know this is a short session. We're gonna, I'll get you some language from other projects and examples. We'll circulate that through. But we were asked to start that process for space waiver, or not space waiver, but yeah, square foot, really from the allowable square footage. You'll need it for all 5 projects. So I think that provides surety to the community as far as the reimbursement. So that's one piece, and then there's other, I guess, tangential asks. Like there's next year there's a so grant applications that would be filed in 2027. There's a 5% add for a housing incentive kind of bonus 5%. There might be an ask to have that be kind of like retroactive to this grant. If that's the case, then that'll change some of the financial models. But right now, we're not contemplating that. And anything that we've shown, we're only contemplating the 15% for the pre-K and then the 15% for the special ed for Eagle Academy. So we'll work on that. That'll be flushed out over the next day or two, just to get something in the draft in the appropriate hands so that can start in motion. Any questions on this schedule? I know we spent a lot of time last time, so I don't want to.
Jeff, just a quick question.
Yeah.
For the, because I want to book it out for the Board of Ed. It says 3-2 or 4-7 basically for the first meeting, right? For the presentation, because then you need the minutes approved, and that's really what we're going to be submitting. Do you see it as a presentation? I just want to know how much.
Yeah.
Will you be in attendance?
Yeah.
Is Antonia going to have us playing games?
She is. I forget the games that it is.
Oh,
Zebra?
Zebra, yeah, we're gonna bring,
Yeah.
so what we typically do is we have a lot of work to do between now and then to develop the ed spec. We have to meet more and get in more detail with that document. We'll develop a draft that can be circulated to the Board of Ed prior to a first meeting. Depending on the comfort of the Board of Ed, we can explain the content, answer any questions, consider that a draft, go to another meeting, they can take a vote. So it could be a 2 or 3 meeting sequence
That's why I want to block them off
Yeah.
now before something else occurs.
Because you're gonna have 5 of them.
Yeah. Well, 4 will be very similar.
Right.
And-
ed specs you mean?
Ed specs.
Yeah, 5 individual ed
Five
specs.
individual
So it's gonna
documents,
take a
right.
chunk of time.
I was,
So when I go and I put a different agenda item on, I don't know why.
yes.
See, I said it was
Last
all
night was
part
like
of my
3
master
hours?
plan right there.
It's like 3 hours.
We'll send
Okay,
in
it's fine.
Antonio then.
Everything's fine.
Yeah, so I mean, whenever you guys want it, I just wanna be able to book it.
Yeah,
We're not quite, yeah,
we're not there
we're not
yet
there
because let me work through, because we have to work through a work plan to meet with the educators to spend more time developing the ed specs, so, let me
No,
work.
yeah, I
through
mean,
it more.
maybe at the next meeting, we can go into,
Yeah.
we'll have a better idea for it. I just wanna make sure I get it on their radar right away.
That makes
I
sense.
mean, the next meeting, we'll definitely have a better idea, because that's the middle of February.
Yeah, next meeting's 3 weeks away.
Because I know last meeting we talked about possibly doing it at that end of April because we wanted to make sure that we had everything set for.
For what it's worth, I know we've done this in the past with the Board of Ed.
Special meeting?
We could do a special meeting and the only agenda item is to approve the minutes. You could close it, as long as it's noted, the special meeting is noticed for 8 o'clock that night, right? Or do a special meeting for just the ed specs and then roll in and do your regular meeting. I've done it both ways here, but those are options if the board is willing to go that way. So you don't actually have to wait you're every 2 weeks, right, for the Board of Ed right now? Yeah, so
Yeah.
you don't have to wait the every 2 weeks, you could just do it.
Yeah, the only one that, like the April, we're gonna only have one meeting. Because the second meeting is one of the meeting is sitting in April vacation.
Right.
Not gonna happen.
Yeah.
So,
What, you mean you're taking a vacation?
I'm taking vacation tomorrow.
We'll figure that out, but yeah, we'll have.
All right, you know what I'm gonna do? I'll put it on, I have a leadership committee meeting next week.
Yeah.
And we plan for the full month at a time. So I wanna get it on their radar then, that we may need to do some special meetings and stuff, just so that they can begin to get calendars ready. I wanna be sort of over-prepared with them.
Yeah.
Nothing against you guys, but you're pretty busy.
I think the good news is with all the programming meetings that we've had to date, we have a pretty good handle and we could get, I think, a solid draft for those working sessions leading up to it. But I'll work through a more detailed working calendar so that you'll know what to expect.
Yep.
That's probably the heaviest lift from a document creation perspective. All the other votes from a town council are really just formulary. Yep. Okay. So I guess I jumped the gun on the space waiver special legislation. I just put this slide together. And actually I started earlier this afternoon pulling together some other community examples so that we can circulate some text to the appropriate parties. So that is also ongoing, and I guess as a goal from a deadline perspective, we would want to have a draft by end of this week, early next, and then at our next meeting, we should have a solid update as to where that may be as far as whose hands it's in. Right. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because the session starts the 5th, 4th? 4th.
All right, so we got schedule for ed spec and then special ed. Those will be two fairly significant items at our next meeting to update. Okay, so at our last meeting, and hopefully this is clear, we were asked to describe kind of the gateways or thresholds for when is the commitment from the state locked in. So this schedule that is on your screen, and it's on the bottom of your handout here, is greatly simplified but explains the process. So when you submit a grant application prior to June 30th, when you submit your grant application, you lock in your reimbursement rate the size of your building, the cost of the project, and the type of the project, right? So whether it's new, renovated, new, the overall. So you basically fix the scope of the project or projects in that June application. Then the state looks at it from June 30th to December 15th, and they start calling right around November, asking questions about, a summary paragraph of each of the projects. So on December 15th, there's a priority list that gets released, and that'll describe all the complete grant applications and their priority on that list. This past year's grant priority list didn't have category A, B, and C. In years past, they would group in priority A as first, obviously, B is second, and C is third. That list then goes, basically, once you get your project on that priority list, that's a good sign. That means your grant application is complete and they're sending it off for approval. So anything that we've had on that list has gone through and has been approved. That's why you'll see a lot of communities start into the design once they know they're on the priority list.
So for when it's presented to the superintendent, all that stuff has to be decided, the site, everything. So
For the grant application, yes.
for the grant application, so we only have meetings through March, so that means between now and the end of March, it's,
Well, we can schedule more meetings.
Right.
Yeah.
right, but that's the timeline we're working with. I would say before the end of March, we would need to establish the sites, the building size, the costs.
Yeah, most of that is already, so we know
Right.
size, we know a large majority of it. The larger lifts in that are ed spec, cost estimate.
And we haven't nailed down all the sites yet, correct?
We have, we should probably review that. I will make sure we review that at the next meeting. We have
I
on
know
the
we've
preferred
looked at a
plan.
number of different
Yeah.
sites, but I don't know that we've gotten an update as far as like where we're honing in on the sites.
Yep.
Some of that will
On
come
the
from
next
feedback from the community
Oh,
conversation.
okay, sorry, am I jumping ahead?
No, it
Yeah.
just says where they are, like elementary 1 at Hazardville, elementary 2 at.
I just
Prudence.
started to freak out with the timeline a little bit, so that's why.
I just looked ahead and said, oh, there it is.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I'm on the computer.
I said, I thought the sites were so.
But you-
Okay, I
Yeah.
thought there was, okay.
That's fine.
I thought
we
there
talked
was
about it.
one site that where we would be not building on a school ground was the one that was still not decided, but maybe that's.
I think we're building them all on school grounds now. I think we
We
had,
are.
we had
Okay.
talked about like the space behind like Betts and Mark Twain there,
Okay,
but then we decided it would be better to.
okay, I don't know how that fell out of my head, so.
Yeah.
I'm on the straight and
Right.
narrow now. I don't
But
know.
otherwise we have 8 million buildings.
No, I thought I was losing it.
No, I thought, I'm pretty much there.
I was a little nervous too.
Sorry about that.
But,
Your face did look
Yeah, we're
nervous. You're like, you're not talking about.
Sorry.
good,
It's been a long week.
no problem, no problem. So,
age, but you're younger than
so the priority list comes out December 15th. It'll have all of your projects on there. Goes to the Ed Commission for approval. They'll maybe modify it. I haven't seen any of ours that went through modified in scope or size, but the Educational Committee basically sets it up. It goes through into the General Assembly and gets approved. So this year's a short session, next year's a long one, so maybe spring, summer-ish. Sometime by June, you'll have a letter. That is when, so they'll send you a letter that the superintendent has to, I think it's the superintendent, signs and returns back. That is the grant commitment letter that identifies the project, the state project number will be identified then, size, reimbursement. So if somebody's asking you in the community when there's absolute surety, it's basically a year after the grant submission. it's a year after the June grant submission. So that surety, that commitment, once you sign it, you basically have to put a shovel in the ground by 2 years. The projects that we project further out, you can ask for extensions. So the two, we have, I think Eli Whitney, which is the Eagle Academy, and Marymount Park. So that's something that we shouldn't lose track of, but, so any questions on that piece? So you won't likely, depending on the town finances, be bonding anything close to, summer of 2027. You'd likely start once you start into construction, which is not until 2028.
Spring or fall?
I have it about halfway through, so probably fall would be my guess. You'll start with, mobilization site, that kind of stuff. Actually,
I
no.
think that's super important when
Yep,
we're trying to sell this.
and I have that identified in the cash flow. Basically when those numbers hit, so, depending on the community, you'll wait a little bit further, depends on a lot of different variables, rates, bond premiums, all that kind of stuff. Is that helpful? I was thinking of including this in the community conversation, the slide that we just went over, does that answer the questions that?
I think that's great,
Yeah.
Okay, good. So the next slide we went over at our last meeting. There's a lot of info on there, but I'm gonna go to the next slide because it has even more info, so. This is the spreadsheet that I created for the conversation with town finance. The bottom right-hand corner is the 5 projects. The left side is a snapshot of every project now has a detailed project budget from everything from construction all the way through soft costs like FF&E, technology, all of that. Then on the top right, I took the months, by year, when you would be spending the money on design, when you'd be spending the money on construction, when you'd be spending the money on all the FF&E that goes into the building. And all of that is divided into cost for Enfield, cost reimbursement by the state. So this document took a lot of time, but this should help with the management of the tax impact. I know there's a lot of numbers and if people are interested in this, I can certainly share that spreadsheet.
What's the number under 1 that has the big circle? Yeah, if you look under hazard bill, you can't see what
The estimated cost, the Enfield
Yeah,
cost?
what is that one? Because I mean, I've got the rest, but I'm just trying to look at that one.
18.
18? Okay,
Oh,
thank you.
We just lost the prices.
So I guess the reason why I wanted to include this is that this is one of the, obviously, the more important tasks is to figure out impact. So now we have all the information we need, more than enough.
I mean, you tell the public, this is what it's gonna cost us, but look what it's gonna cost us just to maintain these buildings.
No, we're renovating too. It's the same thing, but it's all in the cell.
Period, right.
It's all in the cell. I mean, I love it, but
Yes.
I'll sell it.
I
Is
agree.
this included in the presentation or no, for the community conversation, or something similar to, I mean, I know
That's a lot.
that much.
We would greatly simplify it, and our hope was to try to have some read from finance, but I don't know if we'll have it.
Okay,
If we'll simplify this graphically and basically communicate that we're working closely with town finance to understand tax impact.
yeah, because that bottom, like Lauren pointed out, that bottom part right there, that bottom right is like, I think that's gold right
Yep.
there, just to really kind of highlight that,
Yep, absolutely.
Making sure that they know, like, yeah, this is how.
Yeah, we have that summary slide for sure without the left and the top, in the
Yes.
community
like
conversation.
justice part.
And that's, we'll spend a lot of time on
The money, like
how much in total, how much each project costs, and then the costs to make sure everybody's clear on that, because I think this will be,
That's what we have to do.
if people aren't listening to our meetings, this will probably be the first time they'll see.
Right.
results of this.
And like a lot of it's
They
sticker shock.
have to see the value in the new
Yeah.
than renovating.
This one.
Yeah, people have to understand the value of that. I've already been, people my age, I'm sorry, I know I'm old, but a lot of the people in my category that are 70 are saying, oh, huh, my kids moved out of town. And I'm trying to like, wait a minute. This has nothing to do with your kids moving out of town. This has to do with our property values. It has to do with our legacy that we're leaving behind. So I'm trying to explain it to them, but they need to understand this is what we get if we do the new, and do the comparison of what it's gonna cost us to get 5 schools compared to what we paid for Enfield High or JFK. Because you're getting
The
5
Enfield,
schools for,
the Enfield High and the JFK are two totally different projects that were done pre-inflation. Construction costs have,
but we're still getting a bigger bang for our
Significantly.
money. If you look at what it costs
Yeah.
for them and getting 5 for this. You know, do you know what I'm saying, Christine? I'm just trying to look at it from,
In that scenario, you're right, you're getting a bigger bang, but that's also because of the 15%. Because the
Right.
reimbursement rates for all 3 of those scenarios are roughly the same. I mean, for conversation's sake, they're between 70 and 75, so you might as well call it the same reimbursement. You got the same reimbursement, but yes, with the help of the 15% for each of the 5 projects. Now that pushes it into a much bigger bang in terms of the numbers for what you're getting.
and I agree. I just think it's the way we're gonna sell this. We have an older population that vote in this community.
I think that the naysayers are not even gonna look at the bottom line numbers that show, the 20 million, the 19 million. They're gonna go straight, because even with the Enfield High project and the JFK project, they just like to go to that one number without state reimbursement, and that's what they're gonna do with this. So it would be our job to make sure that we push the narrative, the truth, the facts, that it's only a fraction, 18 million, 20 million, 19 million, 21 million,
Right.
5, because those people are gonna hang on to that very large number of the total project cost.
Oh,
And
yeah.
they're gonna be able to multiply it by 5 or.
What's the Band-Aid number if we don't do this?
We're supposed to be getting to that, because that's something we requested last meeting.
I
We
think
wanted
that's-
to kind of show
I think
the.
that's.
I think for, Anne Marie, your young population, stop aging yourself. But the population you're speaking of, I think they need to understand, forget the big number, forget the little number. This is what it's going to cost you. If you do nothing, it's still going to cost you this much money.
Right.
Because the buildings are falling apart, let's be honest.
Yeah.
I can go over to Memorial and put my hand through the wall.
Yeah.
I mean, the boilers are constantly going, it's a mess. So you're going to be spending whatever millions of dollars to put lipstick on a pig. And then, by the way, as soon as you start fixing these things, you're gonna find more problems because it's gonna cost you more money. Or you spend the same amount of money and you get 5 brand new buildings.
Absolutely.
That's what you need to, the
Absolutely.
money is they're going to be spending the money. It's just, you wanna spend the money where you're gonna have something that is gonna last? Or are you gonna wanna spend the money where you have something that's Band-Aided? Now, I'm sorry, I haven't been here that long. You've been Band-Aiding for so many years that we're now in the spot.
And another piece, and another piece of the conversation that we'll.
I know, but I'm trying to be somewhat nice to you.
Finance
Because once you Band-Aid.
is how much, when we did
And when you Band-Aid is not
JFK,
reimbursable. You can't
we had
reimburse.
I think we did it over 15 years. And it was, again, based on the average home value. But it showed, based on the debt service, John was able to do a calculation, and it was, I think at the peak, it was maybe $100 more in taxes based on that median home value per year. And it kind of fluctuated. It was slow, it was bigger, but he also takes into account everything else the town has going on in terms of debt service. So that's another piece where you could say it's a big number, but in reality, the impact to you is gonna be $100 a year, $150 a year, but maybe only for 1 year, and that's not for 7 years from now. And then it goes up and then it goes down. Or maybe it go up and it'll stay at 150 or whatever it is a year, and then it'll drop off, all depending. But those are pieces we'll have once we meet with finance.
So Bob, I'm gonna ask you this question. What would you think?
To be able to,
No.
because I'm in the minority of.
No. So Bob, you and I, what would you think if there was a presentation at the senior center on this?
I think it would be worthwhile.
Can I bring my 7-year-old and be like,
To-
this
to
is
be-
cool?
Well,
be
but no,
honest with you.
I'm just saying, and so, I'm just saying, would this be advantageous?
I don't know that the building committee could do it. The PAC, absolutely.
Okay, so I'm
But I'm
looking
not
at
sure the
Scott then,
building
but-
committee could.
Okay, but again, and I mean, I'd be in the audience. I'm not saying that, and I know at some point I can't as a counselor, I mean, I gotta zip my lip, but I think, is it advantageous for us to have something? Because seniors aren't gonna come out to a 7 o'clock or 6 o'clock meeting at Enfield High. They're not doing it.
No, there's gonna be several of these little offshoot meetings that we're gonna do at PTO meetings, at the senior center. Like Randy said, sitting outside a Stop and Shop with a flyer, but I can't do any of that until we have real numbers.
Okay, but I think it would be advantageous for us
Oh, sure.
to reach out to that population who is they're vocal, they vote, and we need their vote for this. We can't dismiss them.
No, and I would even include Seniors for Education, which is another group in town.
Exactly. So I just, and that's all I'm trying to say. I am 150% behind this. I just want to see it pass.
Yeah.
My fear is it doesn't,
Everybody does.
and we're screwed.
So we'll make sure, Marie, that when it's time that we
Right.
target the senior center, I think that we were trying to brainstorm other places, like daycares and tap into Kite as well with the early childhood, because a lot of who we're building this for, like Chris has said, they're not even born yet.
Absolutely
So we're
right.
trying, so we can definitely.
But I think we need to go after the population that's here, because I'll be honest with you,
Not even a quick.
if I didn't have kids way back in the day, I'm seriously.
Bob, did you want to say something?
Well, the only thing that I just wanted to state is, I guess I'm in the minority of what Marie was saying, because there's a group of people that are pro-education that are our age, in their 70s, that they need to see that the big difference of, what it's going to actually cost in terms of if the referendum passes as compared to, as the superintendent mentioned, that, the Band-Aid effect is going to be costing more money to the taxpayers. So to know that difference and to show them the amount of money that is going to be saved is going to be a big sell, for
Can I say
everybody.
something? No,
Sorry, you're not in the committee, only people that participate,
Yeah.
only committee members.
Write a question.
Write an email.
Yeah.
to our
Send it to
email
Bob.
address.
Email right now.
Send an email.
Yeah.
But, once again, to be able to target, the seniors, I know that in previous referendums, we've gone to different areas with the boards
Boards,
and
yep.
placed it so that they could see a visual. And I think that's gonna be important.
So another thing that wouldn't be out of the question either would be having another community conversation.
Yeah.
So that would be another, because as more word gets out there, you might get more people that would come to a community
Could we
conversation.
do one at the senior center?
That's what I said.
Like, I don't know how big it is. I've only played soccer, the kids play soccer there. I've never been inside.
Yeah, no, it's good size, and that's why I said, would it
Like, is
be
that something we could do?
during the
there?
day when they're there?
We can look into it for sure, yeah.
Yeah, that might be a little selective.
Yeah, you need somebody.
Oh,
Well,
that's
what-
why you're saying Pat
Well,
might
the
be able
PAC
to do it
could do it.
because it's.
Well, the PAC absolutely could do it.
Yeah.
Again, once we have that, but I mean, in terms of a community conversation, there could be someone at the senior center who might set up a TV in the community room that's streaming the community conversation so that they are getting, you know, some of the information while they're sitting there. I mean, there's ways to go about it without directly, I think if it's not, the PAC has more ability, right?
Okay.
And as Scott said, we're just not quite there yet, but right now, in terms of the building committee, I think you just have to be a little careful with, you don't want to give the impression that you're
Picking and choosing who you're
picking and
going
choosing.
towards,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
No, and I get that,
Understood.
and that's why I asked it. I
So
didn't know.
when we get closer, we'll be looking to you for any other ideas that you have about how to get the word out. So we'll be
I
we'll
mean-
be depending on you, Marie.
Are we gonna, are we gonna stream that, this next one at the high
I
school?
stream it and record it, yeah, I think we did last time, right?
So if there's
It's
someone
on
at the community
ETV
center,
then? Yeah, it'll be on ETV,
if
so.
there's a community room with a TV there, you could put it on and offer to the residents there, you know, there's this community meeting, and if you'd like to join, stop by and listen.
So we have a streaming link. We didn't put it on the flyer because we were hoping to get them in person, but I can publish a streaming link on an amended flyer if you would like.
And then
I think it's streaming
people are sharing it on, Facebook and other social media sites. I am hoping, I'm a money person, so I'm really hoping that we can get like one slide that says, this is how much it's gonna cost for Band-Aids.
Yep.
And this is how much it's gonna cost for us to build new schools, on one slide to
Sure.
see them right next to each other.
Absolutely.
I'm hoping that that's something that we can do. I think that's the most important slide to me on my end, is this is what it's costing, this is what it's gonna cost, and it's a no-brainer.
That's actually what clinched in for the high school between High and Fermi was having those hard rail numbers.
Right,
Now,
even just two big numbers, like it's gonna cost us 200 million to fix it, but it's gonna cost us 120 million to get new schools. Like, it's just like having it like right there in front of you, you can't.
So, so we did do an analysis of replacement of all the building systems, infrastructure, basically fixing your building. No programmatic improvements, just fixing systems. Then we did an analysis because some of those, like roofs and now building HVAC, are eligible for reimbursement.
Right.
So you have to, but they're gonna be eligible at a reduced reimbursement rate because you're gonna have a lot of ineligibles. So we've reduced the effective reimbursement rate. So the cost out of pocket is around 211 plus
Right.
million.
So if we do that, and then next to just,
Right, I completely understand, we were talking
Just,
about it today,
you know,
yeah,
this is-
simplifying it.
I love these,
Yep.
but it's a lot for other people.
Yep.
Just,
Yep.
people that don't understand
Yep.
this, construction in general, I think it's just really important to make it as simple as possible to show them, especially that, because most of the people are concerned about their taxes. They don't want their taxes to go up. That's like the biggest concern they have.
so Christine, so when we have that number up there, do you think it would be good to add like that 211 million only fixes?
Right, like Band-Aids, 211.
Right, but like maybe
Oh, some, that, like a
like,
little.
this is what it's going to fix.
Right.
And it's not enough type of a thing. Like, it's really gonna fix the bare minimum. It's not addressing security, it's not addressing program needs and stuff like that. So we kind of have to put with that,
It's not gonna make any building bigger. It's
Right,
not
so
gonna
with
make
that
any
200
doors
million
wider or
basic-
handicap accessible.
I guess the point is, as we want the slide simplified, and I agreed with that, but I also think we have to give it some sort of context.
Yeah, for sure.
Like,
Like, what is that 211 million entail? Because that would be the next question that somebody would ask is, well,
and at
what's
the
in
end
that?
of the day, that would be out of pocket to the taxpayers as soon as the project begins.
Yeah, I mean, the other challenge with fixing as you go is you can't escalate it over 20 years. Like, you're not gonna do all these at once. You're gonna do, the mechanical upgrades, and then one summer, and then you're gonna try to do the fire protection the next summer.
Yeah.
So my point is that if you actually add in the true escalation over those 20 years, it's gonna, like,
Sure.
I can do that,
I know.
these are like, if you were to
I
do it
know.
all
You
at
know,
once.
we obviously want to give them factual
Yeah,
information,
yeah.
like this is
Yeah,
what it's
My-
going.
that's
to
what this is representing.
I know, I just
What
feel,
you-
I'm concerned it's a lot.
Yeah.
like,
Yep.
I know, I'll just keep doing it.
Do you have?
My point on what you're talking about is we also need to, if we're going to have these two numbers, we need to say what we're not fixing and how much that will cost over the next however many years, because that will be added to that 95 million or 211 million, whichever one that one was.
So this number that's on the screen
Yes.
is not, it's fixing the existing physical infrastructure of what you have. It does not bring in new
New anything.
contemporary educational, any modifications or upgrades. for
Which is my
education
point, in
space.
that this is just the beginning number, where the other one's a complete number.
Yes, absolutely.
I think it's important, maybe just to keep this in the back of our heads, because we don't want to muddy the water and keep going around in circles, but some of this stuff is so old that you could be paying, we could start paying for it tomorrow.
That's the
Like
problem.
it could just,
It could just go,
It could
like,
fail,
look how
and
cold
then
it is
you're-
and how old the boilers are in these buildings.
Knock on some
You
wood
know,
over
this
there.
isn't something you can plan, like,
You're not wrong.
Tina, knock on wood over there.
I'm
Don't
sorry,
be jinxing
but
things.
I'm just saying, that's another facet to keep in the back of our head, or another talking point for that community conversation, with maybe one of the committee members says, but it's definitely something that's a talking point at some point, that any of this could become due and be even more expensive, especially if you're trying to rush to get it done.
Yeah, you would have, if this was the direction, you would have to commit, the town would have to commit yourselves to spending fixed allocation every year, which is far more than what you do now.
Yep.
In order to address this, because if you don't, you're gonna pay double for something that's under duress, like in an emergency
Sure.
situation.
But I think this slide and what Christine's saying, and
I get, yeah,
Yeah.
it makes sense.
I want to just kind of get a feel from the committee members, you're good with, I think we all agreed it's a good idea to have the do nothing versus what we're gonna do and really focus on that. Okay.
Huge.
Okay.
I think there'll be time to really get into talking points if people, I'm hoping
They're
people
gonna
have
ask questions.
questions.
I'm
And we
hoping
can
they
get
have
into those
questions.
talking points.
Yeah.
It's hard because we want to for me, I want to have all the information, but I also want to simplify it, but I want a little bit more information, so.
Right, so that's where it's difficult to kind of figure out
Balance.
who, we need to find like a nice balance of look at all this information, but like also
Right.
simplify it for people as much as possible because it's a lot to take in.
And I think as a
For the
group,
general
we're all
public.
on the same page of like talking points or whatever might come up with the community conversation if one of us has to. All right, perfect,
We'll
thank
we'll
you.
work on that.
Thank
And
you,
there's
I
going
really-
to
I
be
really
an active
appreciate it.
link,
Thank you.
correct, that people can just click on if they can't.
I think that's what John Diggs just said.
I just put the live link on the website,
Okay,
District 1, and edit the flyer.
because the weather that we're expecting, it's gonna be frigid, so a lot of people are gonna be like,
Website's active, so I'll have the other one tonight.
I'm gonna, good conversation, I'm gonna jump back to where we were, only because there's, so just to update this group, other meetings and activities that we had since our last meeting. We had a meeting on the 21st, which was, I think, last Wednesday, to review any refinements to the pre-K to 5 program, so that there was pretty minor comments there. And then we spent a fair amount of time talking about Eagle Academy. We have some work to do there programmatically. We got a lot of good information. We talked more specifically about some of the space needs. So we're revising the program. The long story short is it's still gonna fit in Eli without any modifications or additions to it. But it's gonna be carved up a little differently with some of the programs and some of for instance, they don't need such a large cafeteria for a small population. And and it's preferred to have smaller spaces. So we're gonna refine that program. I don't think it's gonna move the needle on the costs per se, but we wanna make sure that we tune up the program, which are you're looking at a slide that is the pre-K to 5 program, but I guess I should just skip over these real quick. Yeah, right here. So we talked about adjusting the locations of the classrooms for elementary, middle, and high school so that there's better flow within the building. We talked more about outdoor areas in the relationship to the indoor program. We talked about the separate entry and drop-off access points to the building, and then refining the core spaces. So cafeteria, multi-purpose room, and then making some modest adjustments to spaces for the high school programs, things like culinary. So it was a good conversation. I think we'll need one more conversation to focus on that program specifically once we document those revisions. So I think we're pretty much there on size of building for pre-K 5 and how it kind of gets carved up. The educational specification meetings will talk more about like the relationships of those spaces and what's needed in each of them. So.
Can I ask a quick question? For the size of the schools, obviously, and all the kids that will be in there, is one art room like enough? I know that kind of may sound a little funny, but really just kind of looking at that, going per school, there's only one art studio. Like the last thing I think any of us would want is to have an additional art teacher who now has to walk around with a cart, like art in a cart, and here we go, we're going to the classrooms because we don't have enough space, or we don't have enough allotted time. Hence the whole library situation. Sorry, Steve, I'm gonna bring that up again. From last night, how we were talking about it, just in general, like having the availability for a library to be used properly, like an art room to be used properly for students.
Our experiences with the proposed number of students, your current elementary school schedule, that the number of spaces with the efficiency factor works fine.
Okay.
I think we'll certainly dig in more when we get into the ed spec just to validate that.
Yeah.
But I think the one thing you do have to keep in mind here is that everybody here now has a home.
Yeah.
Which it might be a little bit different than how you're running some of your buildings now.
Right.
So meaning like so we have a couple spaces in there, I'll pull out the flexible performance space or multi-purpose space at 2100. That doesn't exist now.
Yeah.
And that, if crafted correctly and described in the ed spec correctly, could be a flex space for multitude of like it could be, in one instance, it could be space for an art gallery or exhibit if they're doing an art show, so that they're not having to like recreate their art room or something like that. So I'm confident we have the appropriate amount. I think if there's that dialogue, if we're over that utilization factor of like looking at if you need like 1.25 art rooms, one art room is never going to work.
Right.
So we always go to 2. But with this, knowing the schedules that exist today, I think the number's there, but we'll validate it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. I just want to make sure that's considered.
Yeah,
when we
absolutely.
move into it and stuff.
So good conversations with the district on both the elementary school and Eagle. I skipped over the elementary, so I'm just gonna go back into it. So as a summary, I'm gonna just flip through these so you can start seeing. So we talked, and this is it doesn't necessarily matter from a program and box perspective, but it matters from an ed spec perspective. So we know these size of buildings are a little bit larger for student population, so we're making sure that we have these small learning communities grouped in appropriate kind of neighborhood settings. We want to make sure that And we do have a very good handle on the special education and support spaces, resource, time asides, OTPT, speech, intervention. This program is robust and I think very, reflective of what you're seeing in your current district. Because if you remember, those needs are above the state level. So this program reflects what you have today and with that modest growth that we project. So this page is an important piece because a lot of these spaces you don't have in your current facilities. And we know that's needed, yeah. So we talked a little bit about media and arts, just talked about the art room, but I guess one piece in there is that flexible space that what we're trying to do is build in flexibility in the program and agility in the building so that the building can evolve over time and you're not stuck with any one space. So that's what this looks like. CAF and gym are appropriate sizes, but for those that are detail oriented, we will have a conversation with like food service to make sure things like the kitchen, the storage, the freezer pool, all those support spaces are actually going to function correctly for a student population of almost 600 students. So that's a summary of the programmatic conversations that we've had. We talked about the Band-Aids. I don't know if you want to spend more time on that. I would like to, if I could, are there any other questions on kind of what we've been doing over the last 3 weeks? Would like to hop over to just real quick, and I might just leave it on the screen. So absent, so this is the community conversation number 3, which you have just a smaller.
The non-priority one, I'm sorry. Did I
Yeah,
get me
no,
confused?
I'll go back.
Did I miss something?
So,
I thought I was-
no, let me go back to that slide. Good question. So this slide, yeah, so what you're looking at this one, which I
That
put on the screen.
non-priority.
Yeah, so the Band-Aid approach,
This is okay, I
The
want to make
Band-Aid
sure I'm reading
approach,
it right. Okay.
it's still eligible for some projects for state reimbursement. They're called non-priority, things like roofs, HVAC, windows.
Code stuff.
So you can still get reimbursement, but it's
Okay.
gonna be less.
That's what I thought this was, I just wanted to make sure I was reading it right.
Absolutely,
Okay,
no problem.
thank you.
Yep.
I'm good.
All right,
I
back,
think it's funny that they consider roofs non-priority because they haven't,
Well,
considering what's going on.
No, but again, I want to make sure I was reading it right.
No, because you see the word non-priority and it's like.
And that's,
it's hard to.
Yeah.
I-
Everything's priority here.
Yeah, I don't make it.
You know, I understand.
So, we don't have to go slide by slide, but I'll circulate this draft PDF as well. Obviously, we don't have the slides that we were asked tonight, the side by side with the preferred option versus Band-Aid. We'll work on that, get that out to the group. The way that we structured this is as we try, there is some repeats, so some of this is going to be repeats to you folks, but some people this might be their first meeting, so we're trying to give them enough of a background to then understand why we arrived at what we arrived at. So we go through the history, go through the team, make sure people understand that the demographics and enrollment were part of this analysis. So we're after making sure we size the buildings correctly, we maximize reimbursement, and we limit disruption to the community. So we talk a little bit about some of the options that we went through in the debates that we've had. And then we spend a lot of time on the preferred option. So our goal is to get through the presentation in about 30 minutes so that ideally there's going to be a lot of Q&A about did you look at this, change that, could you do this? So we'll have all the backup information as well for those, but we're trying to balance between giving them, enough background information and then too much information. So
That's
if
such a fine line.
if you feel like we didn't hit some of those targets at the last community conversation, and you think we need to focus on more, I think like, loud and clear, the comparison of Band-Aid versus the preferred option, loud and clear on how reimbursement works. Want to make sure we understand and communicate the need. So that's the framework for this presentation.
I think your last slide that should stay up there is the numbers.
Okay.
Like, nothing, this project.
It should be the first slide when they walk in, too.
The first and last slide, like, I think that slide needs to.
Who likes to save money? Do it this way.
So I think that slide should kind of stay up there if you disagree, because this is a
I agree.
group project, but I think having that number staring people in the face is important, but
Play on, play
I'll
on.
defer to the committee and Brandy, who's in charge.
So you mean the comparison or just the option, the preferred
The
option?
The
comparison.
comparison, just like, so when they walk in, they can see that, and then they can start digesting it, start thinking about it, start thinking about the questions that they have. And then as you're done with it, and we're kind of doing Q&A, instead of just having Q&A there, maybe we can have that sitting behind you. Well, you know, does that make sense?
Because then people
Is that what
would be
you're
like
thinking?
looking behind you and say, like, ask more questions about the 211 versus like the actual project. And I think based off what the committee members are saying is that's kind of the direction we want to go in to get this passed, because everybody's going to be mostly concerned about money and their taxes without even realizing that, the bonding and people won't start paying on this right away. But I think that we all know that we're doing this not only for money, but for the educational value behind it. So I think there's got to be a really.
Yeah,
It's community value.
it really is.
Yeah,
It's
so,
not just educational, it's community value.
right, but a lot of the community, maybe who don't have kids or grandkids or whatever, are more interested in the financial piece of it than the community
Yeah.
piece. So it's finding that balance for these conversations.
I will say Kite has their meeting on Wednesday night. They're usually done by 7. This starts at what, 6? Yeah. I'm just, again,
Well, it starts at 5, the kite meeting typically starts at like 5:30, because I'm gonna be there.
Well, no, I mean,
And then my plan is to like fly over,
well,
but
that's what
yeah.
I'm thinking the same thing, but I'm
It's like
just
a
bringing it
30-minute
out there
yeah.
that there is a Kite meeting
Yeah.
on Wednesday night.
I mean, I might even, you know what, she just emailed me, so I might just send her a message and just be like, hey, could you start the meeting, like, right now? I mean, they're,
Right, I mean, they have dinner and all
I know,
that.
right?
Yeah, I mean, because it's actually like 5, isn't it, that we get there?
I get there right at 5:30 and then it starts, because I'm just like, I've
Right,
got a
no,
lot
I
of
get
things to
it.
do.
So if you want to do that, and again, I'm just bringing it
Yeah,
up,
I'll just
Danielle, because
message
I
her.
know it's this Wednesday, and a
Yeah.
lot of the people that go there.
And I've had conversations with Hannah
Yeah.
about it, because this is one of their biggest concerns, is
Right.
where is Kite going?
Right,
Where is
Right,
FRC
okay.
going? So that is a big concern for them,
Okay.
because they're like, but I did show them, I think one of the things I was able to pull up from a previous presentation when I looked at it was that it looks like it will still stay within Stowe as long as pre-K is out. So it'll be like an ECDC space as well as additional services. That was an old presentation, so I don't know if that's still the case. And I had asked previously, so that is, kind of what I had shown them is that one presentation. But again, I don't know if that's still the same.
Yeah, it is, and
But it's,
that's a good comment, because we might need to pull those back up into the.
Yeah.
I think the people here know that, but I don't
The public doesn't.
know if the public.
So yeah, I was actually, when you started talking about that, I was just gonna go in that direction and see, and I'm wondering, are we prepared for people that might be asking about the Stowe Early Learning Center and the integrated pre-K?
Such a great program.
From the audience, from the community conversation.
You know, I still think, you know, when.
How are you feeling about it,
when we were
Jacqueline?
talking about, you know, the two referendums.
Yeah.
Because people they're gonna ask about Stowe, they're gonna ask about what's going on with Enfield Street, what's going on with Eagle, what's going on with Alcorn.
Yeah.
So I think we have to have answers for all of them.
Okay.
Especially as we're getting to the crunch time for referendum one.
Yeah, yep.
Jacqueline, what were your?
If people ask that question, I feel like I cannot speak on behalf of ACDC.
No, I
Their
would
town,
just.
So that would be a hard no
I
for
would
me.
not be expecting you to speak
Right.
at all about anything that's remaining.
Right.
But if they were
And
asking
the
to what
preschool,
is going into the preschool, that's where, that's not for us to speak to, because it's not even
Right.
the scope of this project. And eventually, like, it's something we do need to talk about, but
I'm careful to not say it because it always comes up and people assume, right? Some people don't
Right.
understand the
so
makeup and I
yours,
just
right,
really
so
don't
we need
wanna-
to be careful that if a question comes up, it's going to be specific to
Right,
the
to
pre-K, integrated pre-K, being part of this
Yeah.
project.
So it would be all of our
Head
pre-K
Start.
programs going into these schools.
Yes.
And the logistics will be worked out, and as it says everywhere on here, to preserve that magic of the early learning center. So we're all committed to the detail. We can work it out. Kids will come to preschool. It doesn't matter which program you're part of, we can figure out the funding pieces, but this structure still allows us to carry on and support it, and logistically, we can restructure to keep it.
I'm just trying to anticipate, and this may not come up, but I'm just trying to anticipate that if this does come up in a community conversation or starts to come up, the more people talk about it, that what you just said is the perfect answer and the direction we're going in with the
Yeah, it's the
pre-K.
direction we're going in, but it's not gonna compromise the good work going on. And yours might just look a little different. No, it's true. Oh my God. I'm not being fresh, I'm being, no,
No,
seriously.
It's not gonna compromise the good work we do.
talking to me?
It's not, it doesn't compromise the work
It
that we
doesn't
do.
Well,
compromise it.
no,
We're
because
just-
everybody-
Preserving the magic.
I think
Right,
people-
anybody who's had a student or has worked there
Yes.
wants to preserve that, and you know that because Antonia has been trying to capture that as well.
Yeah,
I mean, that was the first
And-
thing. we were like,
and-
what are we
right,
doing with Stowe?
right. And most communities don't have an early learning center, and their programs exist across spaces. Some people have like 3 Head Start spaces over here in this school and 14 at this school. The numbers don't really make any sense, no rhyme or reason to them.
But that's where they have space.
But that's, yes, that's where they have.
We have just like such a great preschool program, and it'd be nice to preserve that, but we're getting more money to put it in the.
We're gonna make 4 great preschool spaces.
And Lauren, as far as Eagle Academy, if people ask questions, I still think people are learning about Eagle Academy and.
It's fine, it's been 7 years.
But I like, people might raise questions, just seeing, Eli Whitney, asking, like Bob said, asking about what's happening with buildings, Eagle Academy, therapeutic based school expansion, all that other stuff. And you're in a very, very small space right now, so, those talking points may
I
come up
think
as
people
well.
may ask what will happen, again, and it's in here, these plans, but like what will happen with our current building, because that was such a hot topic a few years ago. So I think if we are
You got
ready to,
plans, you got plans.
right, talk about that, I think that would be helpful also, which they all tie together, right? Because they're shifting kind of across the district and they all will tie together.
So I guess that would be my question too for Randy and Jeff, like how are we anticipating the community conversation going? Like if there are questions about pre-K or Eagle Academy, is that something we would field and get back to them? Or is that something, Jacqueline or Lauren could speak to, or have we thought about that, or?
I can, obviously Randy can decide on what ultimately you want to do, but
Yeah,
historically, we would try to answer the questions that we can there. And I think we were all sitting up on the stage last time, right?
We ended up sitting in the front row so we could
Yeah.
see the presentation, but we were all right there so that
Yeah.
and I think that was so informational, like there wasn't really an open space for there to be like program questions.
Right. I think there's gonna be more questions this time for sure.
Okay, so
Oh,
we
I'm
could
hoping,
talk
yeah.
to Randy and then let, the folks know that, however which way it goes, we may need your participation or the answer to your questions, some of the
I
questions.
think at Field High, we had everyone down in front, and then they passed around mics if there were specific questions.
Perfect.
Happy to be a mic runner.
And there might, I'm wondering too, like if there's gonna even be questions about, like the Board of Ed just got their budget presented last night and I know the project was brought up last night, so I don't even know if there's gonna be some questions directed to the Board of Ed or the Town Council. So I'll talk to Randy and you and Randy can figure it out and then we can just kind of let the committee know what our expectations are of the community conversation of the committee members.
I think one of the other topics that may possibly come up, I mean, I hope there's a lot of people and there is questions, is what's going to happen to the existing buildings or the ones that maybe, like you said, like Eagle Academy, when you're moving out of what's the plan? So I think just that clear distinction of this is what we're doing with it. If we're not tearing down the school, this is what we're going to do with it. So that clear line of like,
Even if we don't know, just saying that
our
focus
focus
has
is
been
to do
building
something with it.
reutilization.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we have a plan. and
Yeah,
We have
I
a
think you do.
diagram of every.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a plan for every single one.
The only building I can't speak to is Alcorn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Because Alcorn will have 2 floors that, I could tell you things that I would suggest, but they wouldn't be school related, they'd be more town related.
I think it's pretty comfortable to say we're in Alcorn until 2033 or
Right.
34.
Yeah.
So
We got some time
Yeah.
to figure out what could
Right.
potentially be moved into.
Because that
I
could
mean,
be
the
another
youth center
thing.
definitely should be staying in that area because
Yes.
the population it serves is right there.
Yeah.
The kids are constantly coming.
Yeah, that's a good space for us. Good.
And we have buses dropping kids off now from schools.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's a good point. I'll pull out the graphics that we have related to what happens with all the other buildings.
Yeah, just in
Yep.
case. You
Yep.
never know.
Okay, so looking at the agenda, I think we're all the way through project budget sheets and cash flow and the tax impact, right? I think we've,
Yes, I think we,
It's in your.
sharing, but
So sorry, we're a problem freak.
yeah, I think we hit pretty much everything.
you wanted to hit.
Yeah, I think, can I recap just to make sure I've got?
Absolutely.
So the comparison slide of preferred option, do is nothing. We'll make sure that that either starts and or finishes. But we'll craft that. The Q&A sheet, I'm gonna get you a PDF, circulate that to you
Yes.
folks so that you can review on Friday. I'll circulate the electronic version of community conversation number 3 and the presentation we went through tonight, comparison slide. And then we're gonna pull in the other related uses for the buildings, those graphics, for like Elm Street and Alcorn. And I think we already talked about the finance meeting. I think that was it. Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and I owe a more detailed work narrative for the educational specifications in the meetings. Okay. I think I did everything that, I had.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I always appreciate your updates and I also appreciate you talking about the community conversation ahead of time. So we can kind of, we can anticipate, but we don't really know actually what's gonna happen and what people are gonna say. I just try to always have as many ducks in a row as I think I can ahead of a community conversation, because we just want this to go as smoothly and as successful as possible. So, and we've been working really hard. So being up there and being able to say what we know and what we've looked at is important, even if it involves other committee members speaking up. So think we're at the part that's community engagement and communications. So we talked about the community conversation number 3. Our other engagement efforts will be the PAC, which Scott is running, but again, Scott, we can't begin that work until the numbers are finalized.
And approved by
And
the
approved.
bodies of government.
We already said we were gonna review and discuss the facts and get back to Randy by 3 PM on Friday. Other engagement efforts, review draft survey.
So we talked about that at the last meeting. I think we decided to put a pin in it and not issue another survey, but we can always revisit that after this community conversation based on the discussion we had.
And the next steps would be to finalize and promote the community conversation, which we did, update cost tax impact, solidify the schedule. I don't think there were other requests.
Just, one thing, I fixed those links, the streaming links is on the flyer, it's on the website. If we could just move it up and put it on the town website for events for the 4th, or the banner at the top for this upcoming week. It's a little bit further down the page, just if it shows up in the event section or the banner, would be good for promoting it on the town site as well.
Right, okay, so there's the barcode and the clickable link now, and it's all been updated on the website, perfect. Our next meeting is scheduled for,
Or that, but let me go.
February
18th?
is it March 18th?
It is
I thought it was February 18th.
February 18th, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yes,
'Cause
February.
I know somebody's not gonna be here. Might be their birthday. Their 30th. For committee member comments, do any of our liaisons have anything they'd like to say, offer, concerns, comments? Do any committee members have anything they'd like to share, any comments that they have? And as Randy always says, anything good to the order that anybody would like to share besides Scott's birthday on the 18th?
You were talking about me?
Well, you said 30 and you lost it. Looking around the room going, who's turning 30? Who's turning 30?
I said it's my 21st, 30th birthday.
I just want to thank everybody before the meeting ends. It took us an hour and 15 minutes. I hope Randy's watching, but we'll be in touch with the emails and you know how to get in touch with Randy if there's any questions. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Perfect. Everybody, all in favor? Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
I saw yours.